光と闇、秩序と混沌、そして剣と魔法の入り混じる世界があった。伝説的な英雄と世紀末的な怪物が激しくぶつかり合う世界。今まさに世界の攻防は彼ら選ばれた者たちの手に委ねられようとしていた。だがそんな英雄物語は彼らに任せておけばよいのだ。世界の大半の人間には英雄も怪物も関係ない。自分たちにできることをやり、今日を平和に生きることができれば皆それで満足なのだから。
Atelier. There's so much to love about this series, from the cute anime ladies, to great different crafting systems, to well thought out battle systems, plus memorable soundtracks that really come together into a bunch of games synthesized into something truly unique. Atelier Marie is the first in a long line of 40 plus games, with most games inside either a duology or trilogy. Now before I start, I should let you know I played two versions of this game. The original PS1 port of Atelier Marie ported to the PS2 as a bundle with Atelier Ellie under a fan-translated patch, as I wanted to play the game in its original form, and it had not been brought over to the US. I have also played the remake of the game on the Nintendo Switch, which was brought over to the US. Most of the gameplay has been recorded under the fan-translated port. But enough talking about it. Let's dive right into the world of Atelier Marie. As the game starts, we're in what seems to be a horrible dream, and it's kinda trippy all things considered. Our lovely looking teacher Ingrid tells us that we're in a pretty tight spot. We're failing school, and we're being given a special assignment. We have to make something worth some value if we're going to be allowed to graduate. If we don't, then we'll basically be expelled. That's one hell of a wake-up call. Our heroine Marlone wakes up groggy and thinks of it as just a bad dream, before her best friend Shia knocks on her door and tells her that she wanted to celebrate with Marie since opening her shop that the school gave, and asks what Marie is going to make to be able to graduate. Marie says it'll probably be medicine, but ultimately she's unsure. Shia catches this and says that medicine would probably be good. Marie reveals to us that Shia has a weak constitution, which means that she gets sick a lot, which comes into play later, but more on that when we get to it. After Shia leaves, we're left alone with an Atelier and a few things. Let's get into a few of the mechanics. In the top right corner, there's a big number at the top. That's how much money we currently have. You need a ton of it if you want to survive. The paper symbol is how many requests we currently have active, and they all have their own imposed time limits. The blue circle is how many active party members we have. The little green guy is how many fairies we have working for us. I'll explain these mechanics more as they come up. We start out with 3,000 silver, but can get just a little extra starting cash by checking this pile of books that stay on the floor for the entire game. Checking out the poster with writing on the wall, we get some pearls of wisdom from our teacher Ingrid, where this acts sort of like a tutorial. She'll tell you all about the mechanics of the game. The two most major things to watch out for are going out of the city alone and money. Starting from here, I'm going to tell you about my first playthrough and learning all of these firsthand, just so you don't end up making the same mistakes I did. I exited the Atelier, went to the academy, spent most everything I had on a basket, a beginner's alchemy book, an I Love Health book, 15 spinach, 5 blessed wine items, and a scale. Then I went to the bar and met my literal best party member, Reuven. He was a huge MVP in my second playthrough, despite how weak he is in the early game. After checking out the bar and some requests, I left. From there, I decided to try my hand at exploration, which mostly amounts to deciding whether I wanted to stay, check my party at the camp, or leave. I collected a small amount of items and went back to my atelier to study, and learned how to identify and create a few items. I went to the weapon shop after this and met the funniest blacksmith in gaming. You'll see why he's so funny in the second playthrough.
In his shop, I bought some leather armor. That's all you can really buy Marie to up her defense a little, unfortunately. After that, I decided to go gather again, figuring I'll be alright on my own. Although with 15 silver to my name, I wasn't going to be able to bring any party members anyway. So I gathered in the forest until 9-6, where I got into a battle. I tried attacking the wolf, thinking I might barely just be able to scrape by. But that wolf sent my ass packing. I checked my stats after this to see if I might be healed by being sent home and getting a day to rest, but the game wasn't that forgiving. So what did I do? Go back outside, this time to Hable Lake, which has the most relaxing song I've heard in a while. Listen to this. Next time I go to the lake, this is exactly what I'm playing. During my gathering at the lake, I encountered a gang of slimes, who proceed to jump me and give me the beating of a lifetime. Did I learn my lesson after this? Hell no! I went back out to the forest and got my butt kicked by another wolf! Finally, I decided that it might be within my best interest to make an item, but all I could make was a neutralizer. So, I said screw it after a day of gathering and tried to hire Reuven, but he was busy, and I couldn't afford his services anyways. So, the last thing I did before giving up was going back to the academy to learn that there are things I did not have yet that I could sell if I got further. For some reason, this frustrated me, because I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. So, I restarted. I redid the intro with Ingrid and Shia, then went straight to the academy to buy a mortar, filter, a centrifuge, lamp, and basket. This time, leaving myself with at least a little money to last me. I went back to the bar to meet Reuven once again and asked Dio for a rumor, which usually gives you a new gathering spot or event to go through. This time, he tells me about the Strudel Waterfall and a boss monster. I paid little heed to it and go outside to risk my butt again in the forest. This time, actually getting lucky and not getting my teeth kicked in by a wolf using the ground. Back at the Atelier, I remembered that items were actually a thing in this game, and that I could equip them. Yeah, you can equip certain items to use in battle, like your spinach, unis, and noose. Once I equipped some items, I hired Reuven and started gathering. Finally, I was able to start winning some fights. I was ecstatic that I was finally getting somewhere. But once again, my gamer senses tingled and said, let's go see about visiting Strudel Waterfall. I actually get about halfway there when I ran into some bandits, barely won, and then proceeded to get jumped by wolves, to whom I lost to due to not being a high enough level. Upon my return, I went back to the bar, where I found new quests I could take on, and ones that actually were around my level. I immediately turned in what I could, and finally, I made some money. Huzzah! My efforts were not wasted! Granted, it wasn't a big amount, but it was a huge win in my book, and I was determined to finish this game from there. For a little while, I was finally getting somewhere. It was just Reuven and I, collecting stuff from the low-level areas, but where we took a few L's, we secured a few W's too. Life was great. But then I wanted to see about who else I could hire. So I did some interviews, told them I wasn't hiring at the moment, and then proceeded to hire my often sick best friend who gave me free manual labor. Okay, so I didn't do all of that, but I did hire Shia because she was the first I saw around. For a test, I had her go into battle while we were going to Hable Lake, which ended up going terribly wrong. Shia is much weaker than Marie. I kid you not when I say she starts at level 0. I've never seen someone at level 0 in an RPG before. Due to my oversight, battles ended up not going too well. Reuven now had 2 ladies to protect, forcing me to end up taking a lot of losses in battle, both in resources and actual defeats. Despite this, I was still able to make money and craft stuff little by little.
At some point, though, due to buying so many ingredients and constant adventures, I fired Reuven to save money and sell certain items that I had gathered to make meager amounts of money. I thought maybe Marie would be able to fight off enemies and Shia could just be a punching bag or something. So maybe he wasn't needed now. Well, I was half right. Marie was able to fight somewhat, but it was again too many resources. Since Reuven wasn't around, I hired another person, my sextons. She then lost her first fight, so then I fired her and went back to how I was doing it before and was able to make some more money again. Reuven, from out of nowhere one day, appears and asks me for a favor. A favor, you ask? Yeah. It turns out that if you adventure enough with someone, you can raise what's called their friendship stat. Raise that high enough and have a decent enough reputation, and your party members will both lower their prices and pay you for odd jobs, like making specific items or collecting certain items. You'll have a certain amount of days to do these requests should you take them on, and if you leave them overdue, they'll either reduce your pay or they'll say they no longer want it. This can be a great way to make extra money outside the bar and the academy, and can really help further your alchemy studies or hire extra employees. If you also raise your friendship stat high enough with each person you hire, you can actually do different side stories for them too. Each one has a set requirement, which are all available in the Atelier Marie guidebook or wiki, but I don't have the knowledge to read the guidebook specifically without Google Translate. I'd recommend if you really want to see everything though, play the Atelier Marie remake. It's a lot more updated and easier for newcomers to the Atelier series. Back to Reuven, he wanted 4 burning sands, something I didn't know how to make just yet, so I had to decline his favor for now. Once he left and a new day started, a new random dude wearing glasses and a smug attitude showed up. This rude dude with a smug attitude is Christ Cool, the #1 student at the academy. Honestly, dude looks like he'd get beat up as a kid for telling the teacher she forgot to collect the homework. But as smug as he is, gotta let him be and fume in silence. After that, there wasn't too much more that was done for quite a few in-game months other than making items and selling what I could, barely living off what I had, but I was surviving. Eventually, a little fairy came to me named Pox. This guy's first visit will always give you a bracelet, so that you can go talk to the fairy elder at the fairy forest. I'll talk on that when it comes up. Back to Pox, this guy usually will come around telling you he can clean up the atelier for a little bit of gold on days 6 to 9 of every month. He's kind of like a kid delivering newspapers to the old folks. Kind of. He has a friend named Patet who sells stuff to you the week after, although if you have a ton of stuff from him, he's really kind of useless. But make sure to stock up on the poonie balls, milk, and beehives when he comes around if you're running low. You can craft at the beehives, or you could sell them for a 2-coin profit later at the academy, making these a little way to get some extra cash should you absolutely need it. Taking the bracelet from Pox, I continue on with the usual for a while until Ingrid shows up, looking like she's ready to do who knows what with the worst of intentions. But Marie tells Ingrid she's been a good girl and receives a reward, the library card. Now, I haven't mentioned this, but at the back of the academy is a library that is sealed off from you until you get this card from Ingrid. This card is a godsend and allows you access to a ton of free knowledge for just about every single item in the game, provided you have the right knowledge stat. Okay, I've been talking a lot about different stats, so at this point, I'm going to talk about each one briefly. In each stat sheet, you have a bunch of different stuff. HP, which is self-explanatory, MP, which is used up by using items in battle, using specials and special attacks, your levels and experience gained from gathering, battles, and turning in quests, then your physical and magic attack, defense, and speed stats. Each person uses different attack types, such as Reuven being a physical attacker and Marie being a magical attacker. Specials will also use these specific stats for damage calculation. Aside from that, Marie has extra stats: fatigue, fame, and knowledge. Knowledge is how much Marie knows about alchemy, and it's the most important stat to be able to successfully create items and learn about new ones. If Marie doesn't find out about the items, she can't create them. Fatigue is how tired Marie is from alchemy creation. In this version, Marie doesn't really get all that tired. The fame stat is how people perceive Marie. The more she has, the better. You can easily make the highest knowledge and fame stats as long as you stay diligent on making items and completing requests on time. Back to the game, I make a hard financial decision. I have to fire my best friend. I finally brought in one of the other potential hires I met before, though, Halesh. He's great in a group fight, but not much in a single fight. He did what he could, though, and I was grateful. Before his first adventure, though, I decided to keep making new items, one of them being a Shario cheese. As soon as I made it, a minigame appeared, telling me that a mouse had stolen my cheese, and I needed to trap that mouse and get it back within 3 minutes, or I'm going to lose all my cheese. I was a little taken aback, as I wasn't expecting a minigame to appear, but made me wonder what other minigames would appear, and when. Although, I couldn't focus too much on that now. I had to get my cheese back, and I wasn't about to let some mouse a quarter the size of Marie steal my darn cheese, so I trapped it and chased it around for a few minutes, before catching it with plenty of time to spare. Then, Halesh had his first job. I took Reuven with me for extra protection, and we got into our first battles on top of Mount Veland. We ended up nearly using all of our healing items after the fight, but we made it and with a few levels after. I forgot that I had asked for a rumor from Dio about this place, and ended up meeting the boss, Flompfile, the Flame Dragon. He roars, and immediately nearly turns my party to ashes, and I wasn't sure about fighting him, but seeing the minor damage we could do, I figured it was best to run, and I barely escaped. Pushing my luck, I did it again, and barely escaped with my life again, before returning to the Atelier. I was too low level for him right now, and if he's doing this much damage against me, how am I going to be able to beat him? I was going to have to come up with a game plan, but much later once I was properly leveled. I then ran into a stunning redhead, Kyrie-Lick, or Kyrie for short. She said she would ask a favor later, but left it at that. A mysterious woman, that one. While I don't get to see her events in this iteration of Marie, I do get to do them in the remake. Kyrie is a half-human, half-demon hybrid who hates humanity and has major daddy issues. The hardest boss in the game is actually her father, which gives her special lines saying that it's time for her to end him after you and Kyrie climb his castle, the Airfolk Tower, which I climbed multiple times in both the original and the remake. But once I finish my introductions with Kyrie, I go back to the Atelier, where she invites me to go to the market festival. We stayed for a little bit, and went to the cemetery as a challenge after dark. Both ladies get majorly terrified and run off. If it's one thing, you don't screw with the supernatural. Then, I visit the weapon shop, and talk to the blacksmith. He notices my skills are sharp, and he asks me to make him a hair growth tonic, as he misses having hair, and being bald just isn't in style. I make the tonic, give it to him, and visit Medea Forest, and run into another mini-game. This time, I'm playing some Super Marie. Oh, I don't know. But we aren't saving princesses here, we're taking some golden apples. This game was a little tough, as you have to jump over trees and rotten apples, and the physics in the air are a little weird. But I made it in time to get all 3 apples, and return to the Atelier with my prize. The next day, the blacksmith shows up, looking straight up like he's about to drop the greatest 80s hair metal album of all time. He's super happy, and he hands us Marie's best weapon, the Star and Moon Staff, aka the Cosmic Staff. This sucker lets you use Marie's special ability, Thunderbolt, damaging all enemies on screen, and at this point, she's super powerful. She gets even more busted in the remake, where you can double the power of an item in your inventory, allowing you to do massive damage on bosses up to a quarter of the hardest boss's HP. It's insane. To celebrate, I decided that it's time to outsource work to the fairies, hoping I could get some cheap manual labor. Were they cheap? Yes and no. To explain, there are different fairies you can hire, which can work or synthesize stuff at a certain speed that Marie can, starting from black fairies, who work at McDonald's level pricing at 20 silver coins, but they work at 1/7 the speed of Marie, all the way to Indigo, who work at the same speed as Marie, but for 300 coins. Now, you have to pay these little guys a monthly salary, and if you don't schedule them to work, they get to play all day, and you have to keep paying that salary. It's like the game's literally telling you, if you want to build an empire, you better be ready to pay fair wages and then some. So, I hired a black fairy to start, and forgot to schedule him to do work. So, he gets to play all day while I pay him. I visit the weapon shop owner, hoping that he's working on his metal album, when I find out he's gone bald again. He kicks me out of his shop due to depression and probably considers his life choices for a while. A while later, I go outside before hearing a rumor about the Phantom Thief, Der Himmel, and how they're so cool. I then run to the academy to do some more research and run into an old man who apologizes before running off to the library. Since I was already heading there anyways, I followed after him and discovered that he disappeared. Paying little mind as I usually do, I flip through the books for knowledge, checking each shelf to see if there's anything more than just the one book. By doing this, I stumble upon the Batcave. I mean, the hidden library of the school, where the old man introduces himself as the headmaster of the school, Dorney, who tells me I'm free to research in his study, but I can't take any books out. So I leave, and immediately head to the bar for some more quests from Dio, when his daughter shows up and says that she received a letter today from the Phantom Thief Der Himmel herself, saying that she was going to steal a priceless treasure and that Marie is needed to help make sure it's not stolen. Marie stays that night, guarding it with Dio's daughter, but she walks off with it. Then she reappears, confusing Marie, before the two women figure out that Der Himmel got away. You could say... Marie swears that she's going to catch Der Himmel and bring peace to Dio and his daughter. While I continue making more items and learning about making new items in hopes to catch Der Himmel, I go to Strudel Waterfall with Kyrie and Reuven. During this trip, we encounter Boss 2, Wurbel, the Wind Monster. Wurbel nearly takes out Kyrie at the start. I try some special attacks, but they aren't hugely effective, and Kyrie gets knocked out. I am able to just barely get away with my life, but at a decent HP cost. Another thing to prepare for, it seems. Readjusting myself, I was thinking about catching Der Himmel when I got a knock at the door. It was the blacksmith yet again, asking for another hair growth tonic. He hated being bald and wanted another go at it again, so I obliged him and made him another one. He came back in excitement and grabbed it. After a few days of alchemy stuff, I get another knock at the door. And who do I see? It's the goddamn blacksmith again. In a disco suit, no less. This man went from metal to disco in the span of like a year. What's next? Elvis friggin' Presley? Bro had a whole disco ensemble going on during this scene too. I can just imagine, if this were in animated form, he'd probably be dancing the whole time too. Poor Marie probably cringing in the back. So once the funniest blacksmith in gaming left the scene, I went off on a side quest with Kyrie and Reuven to take out the local bandit gang, who I hear had been doing some bad stuff for a while. Their leader smugly tells us we're either extremely brave or extremely stupid to come to their hideout, and since we've seen it, they can't let us leave alive. At this point, Kyrie gets knocked out during the fight due to being a little underleveled, but Reuven and I are able to fight them off, with most of them being stamped out in just a few turns, thanks to Marie's overpowered special attack. Upon my return and a few days of brushing up on my alchemy knowledge, I get another knock at the door. This time, it's the bandit leader, who introduces himself as Schwab, who tells me he felt like a beta cuck because he got stomped out by a woman in battle, so he's going to become an adventurer and make an honest day's wage. Remember, guys, sometimes all it takes is a strong woman ready to beat you up that'll make you come to your senses. Anywho, after that eventful meeting, I go outside and bump into another guy. Marie sure has a tendency to not pay attention and bump into meeting new people every time. Marie swears she's seen the guy before, but isn't sure, and the guy doesn't know her either, so he says she's imagining it and leaves. I pay no mind to the interaction and decide to start climbing Airfolk Tower and using it to grind experience for Marie and everyone else. I don't want to waste too many resources, so I climb about 3 floors high before I lose and am forced home. By then, I can make an item called the Living Rope, which I wondered about what use it has, before I head into the bar and engaged in the event of catching Der Himmel. Himmel herself decides that she's going in bold, thinking she didn't need a disguise this time. Her target was too easy. Unfortunately, that ego got the better of her, and Marie let out the living rope to tie Himmel up and start the beginnings of Atelier 5. Okay, but for real, Dio the bar owner realizes who Der Himmel is and tells us her name is Natalie, and that if she doesn't want to become the next Joker, she better return everything she stole and earn a real wage. Natalie does so and drops by to let us know. And then we make something called the Tablet of Time, which, as soon as we make it, makes us play a crappy Pac-Man clone. And jeezel, is it difficult. You have to collect the letters that spell out Tablet of Time in order to be able to complete it. All while you have a ton of ghosts trying to put you to sleep. It took me a few tries to get it right, but eventually I made it and was able to use it down the line. Deciding to fight Werble at Strudel Waterfall, I played one more minigame on the way, where I got to smash Poonies with a hammer while they and bombs fall over me so that I could attempt to win some money. I didn't really need the money at this point, but it was nice to have, so I played and obviously won. Then I fought Werble in a match to the death, where I used Marie as a healer, while Kyrie and Reuven held the front lines as attackers. If you want an easy way to beat Werble, use items like super bombs and mega crafts. This helps a lot in taking her down. Otherwise, being around level 30 as Marie and around level 15 for your party members should work for this. Upon arriving home, Professor Ingrid drops by to lecture us about how much we've been going out adventuring lately. We passively just tell her okay, and she leaves. Wow. Thanks, Teach. Not much happened for a long time after that, though. I met some endangered turtles that I could have killed for their shells, but left alone. I went to the King's birthday festival with Shia, who I lost, and then immediately found the guy I ran into before, who's wearing what looks like some royal armor. Marie thinks that she's seen this guy before, but he tells her that she's just imagining it. Grade A gaslighter right here, folks. From there, I go to the academy and find Shia, who's looking a bit worse for wear. Shia says that she came to buy medicine from the academy and that she wasn't feeling good, so she went home. I also go home and continue my studies when Shia drops by again. She says that she wants to go shopping and asks us to tag along. I tell her okay, and she tells us to meet up at noon. But when we do, she doesn't end up showing, which is really weird. I go outside again and go to the castle on a whim. I meet the man in the armor again, who finally tells his name. Prince Bredoff, the prince of the entire kingdom. I was somewhat shocked, but after he told me that he isn't able to leave the castle very often due to being next in line to be king, I totally understood why he was sneaking out all the time. He hands me a pass that allows me to go into the castle whenever I want to talk with him. I tried using it a few times, but I never got to see him. Ingrid, a few days later, drops by to ask Marie if she knows Shia. Marie answers that Shia is her best friend and asks what's up. Then, Ingrid drops the news. Shia is extremely sick and bedridden. By this point, my heart sank. I had exploited my best friend in the past, and now I'm paying for it with her on her deathbed. Marie runs to the house, and Shia thanks Marie for seeing her. Shia, slowly losing hope though, continues to say that there is an amazing medicine, the elixir. It's at the academy, but even as wealthy as her parents are, they just can't afford to buy the medicine. Marie resolves to make it herself, and she adjusts that Marie might poison her. Taking this jest in kind, Marie says that she is sorry if she does make something that ends up poisoning her best friend. For the next month, I use everything at my disposal to make this medicine from the ground up, and am able to return to Shia, elixir in tow, and give it to her. She immediately starts feeling better and rests for a while. A few days later, she comes by and thanks Marie for making the elixir, and says we could be together forever, before handing us an item called the Spirit of Tears. This is a very special item that will be used for the final part of the game, for a recipe we are told about in a memory dream by Ingrid, the Philosopher's Stone. The final goal for all alchemists. I already had 2 of the much needed items. I only needed 2 more, one from Flampfile and a rare flower called the Dunkelheit, only available on the day 618. I started preparing for Flampfile by making some spirit glow orbs, which he's elementally weak to, though this took me a couple of tries. I took Halesh and Reuven down with me on this, and of course Reuven was the big MVP while Marie struck down Flampfile. Upon returning home, I get a knock on the door. It's Halesh. He asks if we have a dragon tooth, as he met a boy who was horribly bullied after the boy tells a tale of how his grandfather had a real dragon tooth, but when he tried grabbing it to show his friends, it was gone. His friends relentlessly bullied him, making him cry, so Halesh said he'd find one for the boy. I, of course, gladly gave him the dragon tooth, since he was part of the fight with Flampfile, and Halesh thanked me before heading off, never to be seen again. Then, on 618, I grabbed the final ingredient for the Philosopher's Stone, the Dunkelheit, which is only available during the eclipse that comes once a year on this date. Finally, I make the darn thing. After reaching my goal, I resolved to get myself to level 50 before the end. So, I climbed Airfolk Tower with Kyrie and Reuven. We rip and tear through all the floors until we meet the final boss, Kyrie's father. So while I didn't exactly find the information I told you about earlier until I played the remake, this big beast is Kyrie's father. She says that it's time to end things, and he is the final, but optional boss. He's super powerful, having max HP at 999, but, much like Flampfile, he's weak to the spirit glow orbs, so obviously, I defeat him, since I still had leftover items from Flampfile. At this point, it's a race to get to level 50. Thanks to Marie being over level 30, she gets an AoE attack that wipes out enemies, and I clear Airfolk Tower again and again, even getting to play a fun treasure puzzle minigame that I easily win. But, despite all my efforts, I do not make it to level 50 in time. I was level 49, with just 1 experience point left before I became level 50. Because of this, I didn't get the true ending. What I got was Marie getting called to the academy and meeting Ingrid. Ingrid asked if Marie was aware of what the townsfolk were calling her. Marie says she didn't know, and then Ingrid proceeded to list off all the names like Bomb Girl, making it sound like Marie is only blowing stuff up all the time. Unfortunately, Ingrid tells us that our life is not suited for alchemy, and we don't get to graduate. This is one of the normal endings, the savior of the city ending. Multiple endings? Yeah, there are more than 2. In fact, there's 7. To describe the rest, the first one and canon ending, which I got in the remake, is called Legendary Person, which requires Marie to have made the Philosopher's Stone and be level 50. Ingrid tells Marie that she has surpassed the entirety of the alchemy, including the headmaster and Ingrid herself, and Marie graduates. She tells Shia that she'll be off to heal people where there's little to no health care, kicking things off for Atelier Ellie. The second, 2 legendary people, which was only added in the Atelier Marie PS2 and later remakes of the game, require both Marie and Shia to be at level 50, where they both become adventurers. The third, Researcher, requires you to 100% the game's crafting sections, and 100% everyone's side stories, which allows you to do so. In this ending, Marie becomes a researcher at the Academy's Meister rank, although she once again becomes the worst performing student within the rank. The fifth, Philosopher's Stone, requires that you create the Philosopher's Stone, but not be level 50. In this ending, Marie becomes a teacher at the Academy. The sixth, aptly named Normal Ending, sees Marie graduate and continue at her atelier with Shia. You are required to not make the Philosopher's Stone, but be level 50. You also have to make a level 4 item. This is increased to rank 6 items in the remake, but most of those are the same items. The final ending, which requires you to waste all your time, causes the world to perish. Yeah. The game gives one final F you for wasting its time. It's literally the made-up game over screen that the angry video game nerd made for the Friday the 13th episode. Good lord, talk about being taken back to the past. Anyways, there are a lot of other events I didn't go over, like the tournament that you can partake in, but why spoil everything? If you want to pick up Atelier for the first time and you want a good challenge, I'd recommend buying the Atelier Marie remake. It's really easy compared to the original, and has a lot more available information at the ready on the wiki. Anyways, if you liked the video, I hope you subscribe, so you can stay updated when I cover the next game, Atelier Ellie. Until then, Roxem out.